All right, it's 2 o'clock. So we're going to get started because if I've learned anything about these calls is that an hour goes by rather fast and we tend to have no time at the end for questions if anybody has those. So let's see how we do today. So thank you all so much for joining us for our April LoProCO Local Procurement Colorado call. Again, these calls are all around supporting farm to school, creating that foundation, and providing tools, tips, resources, and guidance for those who are looking to really craft their farm to school journey, no matter what their role is in this overall puzzle. That's actually a little teaser for a future call that we are going to be doing in June, is identifying your role and how you can really support this process and foster that farm to school environment. So I'm Chef Jessica Wright from Nourish, Colorado, and I have my colleague Chef Fernando here as well. And then we have an awesome group of panelists today, some food service directors from around the state who will be sharing their experiences with you all today as well. And so our topic today, again, we're going to have some food service directors who will be sharing their farm to school journey. We've chosen a nice little mix of food service directors, some who are just getting started and some who have been doing it for, gosh, I don't even know, like 5, 10 plus years, to really share that process of getting started from point A all the way to point Z and what all it actually takes to foster this and keep this work going. And then our culinary demo will be all about what I consider some of the foundations for flavor: mushrooms and onions. Two products that are grown in Colorado, believe it or not, very easily accessible, tend to be used in a lot of different culinary applications. And when used in certain preparations, they are quite delicious and can truly enhance the flavor of your meals. And Chef Fernando will be handling the culinary topic. So who's here today? Who's joining us? We have the Western Slope is representing for us. So whoop, whoop, Western Slope. And we have Janet Fogel, who's from Minkus School District. Her school district has just over 450 students. And I wanted to note the amount of kitchens in these schools as well. So for Minkus School District, they have one kitchen where all the kids filter in to that main cafeteria from the high school, middle school, and elementary level. And I actually know they got a brand new kitchen built too, which was a really big, super cool experience because I got to work in that school with their old kitchen, and I still can't believe the meals that they were able to produce in that old kitchen. So it's exciting to know they have a new kitchen now, and I'm always curious to learn more about that. We also have Sherry Nelson from West End School District, way on the Western Slope, basically borders Utah. And they are a small school district, just over 250 students. Again, similar situation where they have one school, all the kids basically go into that same kitchen. And then they have a charter school as well, which has its own kitchen too. And then our final school district is Gunnison School District with Kristen Osborne. And she has just over 2,000 kids, a handful of schools, 6 of them. One of them is a charter school that's actually not on the National School Lunch Program. However, we like to at least note them because there could be an opportunity there in the future. And the way their schools work is they have one school in Crested Butte that has a kitchen that takes care of elementary, middle, high school. And they have a elementary and a middle school kitchen in Gunnison that basically prepares the meals and ships those out to their little primary school that they have. And then the high school has its own kitchen as well. So it's just good to know what our schools are handling and dealing with, especially as we get into farm to school. And today, again, we are talking all about farm to school, and we're going to be talking about the different elements within farm to school and what these food service directors are doing for their farm to school programs. Because we talked about it, the ultimate goal is to have all 3 of these elements interwoven together and supporting each other. However, that's the end goal, and it takes a while to actually get to that end goal. But you can always start somewhere. So we do like to really look at the different elements between procurement, which is buying your product, school gardens, which could be a garden outside. It could have like little tower gardens indoors that are growing fresh herbs or lettuces. It could be hydroponic growing systems that you're Future Farmers of America kids are managing. There's a lot of different ways that we've seen the school garden element play out. And then it's also food and nutrition education, which can be as simple as education happening in the cafeteria, where you're telling the kids some highlights about why these onions are so delicious and where the onions come from, all the way to actual culinary classes where the kids are learning how to make food, prepare food, or even testing recipes that then go back into the school meal program. And you're putting those kids to work effectively for you all. However, if you think about that, if these kids are involved in this process and they're developing recipes that work within your budget and the meal pattern, there's a higher likelihood that you're going to have more participation from those students and all of their peers, because they're going to be like, hey, look at what I made. This was my idea. So there's a spectrum within these three categories. And there's a lot that you can really do, from small steps all the way to the big steps. So we're going to get into it because, again, we like to say everybody has to start somewhere. And whether or not it's a small step or a big step, as long as it's a step, that's all that matters. And the thing with taking these steps is we're learning and growing together through this process. And there will be false steps as well. There's going to be some steps that don't work. However, we don't want you to shy away from taking those steps and trying new things and testing things, because again, farm to school has to fit into your model and it has to make sense for your operation. And we always promote the starting small. So we're going to get into having our panelists speak. I'm going to stop sharing and we'll ask the first question today, which is, how did you get involved in farm to school? So who got things rolling for you and what resources were there to help you? And I think I'm going to start with Janet. I'm going to put you on the spot. So go ahead, Janet, if you want to give a quick little introduction and then dive on in.
Perfect. Well, thanks for having me, Jessica and Chef Fez. Good to see you guys again. They've spent an awful lot of time in our district, so good to have their faces in front of me again. So I'm Janet Fogel. I'm from the Mancos School District, as they have introduced. Again, very small school district compared to some of your guys' very large areas. I am in my 9th year here. When I first started, there was very minimal farm to school happening. However, in my area, I found that we were very rich in local foods. We're surrounded by farms, surrounded by great farmers. So we really had a lot of opportunity to grow this program quickly. I would say over the 9 years, we have definitely had our ups and downs. And our program has looked different almost every year. So in the early years, it was kind of survival mode, I would have to say. So we basically I reached out to these local farmers and made connections with them, and literally they would pull up at my back door, and I was making these purchases out of the back end of a truck. Very small purchases. And then this evolved over time, and we, as collectively in this area, there's 7 school districts within this small little Southwest region, who ended up kind of developing a co-op, a buying co-op, and we worked together in developing a bid process. So that bid went out to our local farmers, and that kind of ensured a couple of things. One, that we were getting our products from a safe place, and that we actually went to the farms, visited these farmers, saw their processes. They were able to produce SOPs for us. We were able to ask questions and get them really involved. We held some local meetings. We some workshops to try to teach them how our process worked as far as what it takes for us to purchase those foods. So that kind of evolved over time. My little district here ended up going through some construction phase. So we had to completely uproot our school gardens, and we went through 2 full years of construction. And it also put us in a weird place in our kitchen too. So kind of put a damper on a lot of things. So I would say our farm to school kind of went down at that point, our involvement in it. And then recently, in the last probably year, we have included beef, local beef, into that local purchasing as well. So we are purchasing from local farmers. And I would say this year we are 100% serving local beef in any meal that actually requires. So I would say probably a good 60 to 70% of our meals involve beef. So as far as COVID year, of course, that kind of put things a little bit weird as well. So I'm actually looking forward to reaching back out with farmers again. We did go out with a bid again this year. So I'm kind of looking forward to restarting that whole process up and starting to procure some fruits and vegetables again.
That is awesome, Janet. Thank you. And I think it's really important to note that, I mean, she's been doing this for 9 years and there have been ebbs and flows. But even during the ebbs, like you don't just give up. Like you still, like it's still there. Even if it's on the back burner, it's still there and you're still working towards it. So that's exciting. And I love the group purchasing model that they created down in Southwest Colorado. Because again, for some of these school districts, it's a lot of work. It is a lot of work for every individual food service director to go out there and make those contacts and meet that farmer. So if you have that ability to actually pair up with your surrounding districts, maybe even your surrounding institutions, there's a lot of opportunity there to really strengthen that model. So that's exciting. I'm going to turn it over to Sherry from West End as well. Tell us your story. How did you start?
I'd like to explain how rural our location is, where we are 100 miles from Montrose, 100 miles from Grand Junction. The nearest next town is Norwood, and that's about 20 miles away. We have very few farmers. We have a lot of ranchers here. So we had very difficulty getting fresh produce to us. When I started as the food service director about 15 years ago, I committed to the new requirements of more healthy fruits and vegetables. And so I joined the UNBOCES cooperative. So they're able to provide produce, but needless to say, it's usually from the other side of Colorado or Arizona. What started us to get involved with the school to farm program is our district and school administrators wanted to start up our ag program again at all of our schools. And also our superintendent applied for the Colorado Health Foundation grant, and we received that grant. It's a 3-year grant that they have helped us work with our school districts and community, and we work together to support our students and staff and community health needs. And one of the biggest part is eating healthy. So that's how we got started. And do you want me to share the rest of what we're done? Or are we going to do that later? I can share it now or later.
We're going to keep going in. So how about I have you share that later?
Okay.
As we get to that section.
Okay.
And thank you so much for sharing that, Sherry, because I think the rural component and just how like remote you are is so incredibly important to note, because so many of our school districts in our state are in that rural position where they really don't even have a grocery store 10 miles away even, and they're limited with the farms and the access. And sometimes for these schools, the easiest way to buy local is through their current vendors and utilizing the group purchasing cooperatives that they might have. And even if it's not coming from directly down the street from you, if you're still sourcing from within Colorado and trying to make some active efforts to buy those Colorado peaches or buy those Colorado onions when they come, that's still something, and it's worth acknowledging that. And I love the ag program and getting those students involved, because that is an untapped resource that is really only now really starting to be connected to food and nutrition service departments and where you can really link those kids together. So that's exciting to hear, and I can't wait to hear more. And we're going to turn it over to Kristen to wrap up this first section for us. How did you get started?
Hi there. I've been food service director for, this is my 5th year, I think, which is hard to believe. And we are kind of more in the beginning stages compared to the other districts. But we started to get involved with Farm to School with the help from Mountain Roots, which is a local nonprofit focused on local food and sustainability. And they built the school garden down here in Gunnison, and there's also one in Crested Butte, and they help maintain that school garden, and they even do some classes out of it. They are connected with the curriculum, which is really cool. But they reached out to the food service department to try to get us more involved. And sort of our first steps have been really come about through like the help of their AmeriCorps volunteers, who encouraged us to use garden produce like in our summer food program. And we especially started doing that in 2019, the summer before the pandemic. And we used like greens in our salads, and used a few other veggies. And then those AmeriCorps volunteers were awesome because they were super proactive about doing some nutrition education with the kids. So they would have taste testing with school garden products, or just other nutrition education, like have the kids try various foods that were like different sources of protein, like they had like beans or hummus or things like that. So that was really cool. And let's see, that's mainly how we got started. We also did get potatoes from the school garden, and in fall of 2019 we did like a breakfast roasted potato dish with those, and that was super popular.
That's so awesome. And I've been trying to grow potatoes in my garden for years now with no success at all. So I want their tips. And I love the fact that I think this is really important to note. Between the 3 panelists, they all got started from different ways. So, you know, Kristen had a local nonprofit, Mountain Roots, that really was kind of the driver and reached out to food and nutrition services. How can we connect? Janet, between herself and working with other local school districts in her region, the food and nutrition services really led the charge there, on top of a lot of good, strong community food, local food programs down in that region. And then Sherry was able to do it, 1, from her own personal commitment, and 2, from a commitment from the superintendent, and using the ag-based programs as well to do this. So 3 different ways to get involved. It's not a, as I like to say, it's not a standardized test model for doing farm to school. It's really figure out what works for you. So now that we have the foundation for how you all started, I think it's time that we're going to pass it over to Chef Fernando to talk about the foundation of flavor.
There we go. Thank you, Chef Jessica, and hello, everybody. I see a lot of familiar faces, which is always awesome. But yeah, I just want to talk to you real quick about this farm to institution, farm to school. And it's so great to hear that there's movement and people are doing it, it really makes us very proud of you. But for those of you who are on the call or will be listening later, if you're interested in starting your program and you don't really know where to start, if you already use raw onions, you can go ahead and swap and find a purveyor, call your vendors and who has local onions and just swap them. Just whatever you use, raw onions, see if you can add those local Colorado onions, because we grow so many different in locations here in Colorado. We grow a lot of onions. So I think that's a really easy, I don't want to say easy, but it's a easier step to get started in farm to school. Also, from there, you can move on to other items like potatoes, carrots, and slowly build your program. But I have, before I show you this cool video, because we really want to focus on giving you tips and how to, start using these products. We're going to be showing you how to, make some great, delicious food with mushrooms and onions. As Chef Jessica mentioned, it's the base for a lot of great food. But a cool, some fun facts about mushrooms. They have been consumed for millennia. We've been eating mushrooms as humans for a long time. And the cool thing about mushrooms, if you're having some problems convincing your students to eat mushrooms, tell them they're not plants, they're not animals, they're a thing of their own. They're a fungi kingdom. They don't require any sunlight to grow. They're amazing. Just like we said in other videos about beans and cornmeal and whatever, try to use a variety of different mushrooms, because if you only eat button mushrooms, you're only getting so many different nutrients and vitamins. So if you eat a variety of them, you're just gonna get so much more benefit from them. And they've been used in Chinese medicine for their benefits, medicinal properties for hundreds and hundreds of years. And where can you find them? Alamosa, in Longmont, Fort Collins. But with mushrooms, there are so many mushrooms being grown indoors. So do your research, ask the Google, mushrooms near me, and boom, you're gonna get a lot of information. With onions, I like onions. I really enjoy onions a lot. They originated in Asia. They're mostly water. So when you cook them, you add them to your dishes, you're not really adding a lot of calories. And like I said, you find them in so many different cuisines. Pretty much anywhere you go in the world, you're gonna find them. So there you go. If they make you cry, you may be like, they make me cry. Well, you know what? You know why? Because they have a sulfur acid that when you burst those cells, they release, and that sulfuric acid goes into your eyes and it makes them irritated. How to avoid that? You can rinse them underwater, put them in the refrigerator, but the key is the younger, the fresher the onions, the less they will be making you cry. And like I said, where do we grow onions? All over Colorado. So call your purveyors, call your vendors. They'll have something for you to share. And the last thing, we're not really concentrating on barley, but we are gonna share with you a delicious barley and mushroom soup. I don't know if you know, but here in Colorado, we grow tons and tons of barley. However, it is not culinary. It is to make beer, which is awesome. We need to keep doing that. But we don't grow any culinary barley here in Colorado. It's not gonna stop us from sharing our delicious recipes. So let's get to it. I wanna share with you real quick this great video we have for you so that you can start getting inspired about using this product. So let's take a look. Jessica, just say, I can't see you anymore. Is it on?
Video is up. It's a great spot. But the sound, Fernando.
I think I know what I did. I'm sorry. Let me try it again. Share sound. There we go. Let's rewind. What about now?
And hello, welcome. This is going to be your culinary section. And for today, we are so excited to talk about 3 different products that we grow here in Colorado. And we're going to be showing you how to prepare them, how to work with them. And we also got some recipes for you. We got some onions, we got some mushrooms, and we also have some barley. And I just want to make sure and say something important about barley. Without barley, there's no beer. So we have to make sure that we keep growing barley. All right, so let's get into it. So we got our onions. We have so many different kinds. And today we have some sweet onions, white onions, we have some yellow, red. These are great for pickling. We can eat them raw. A lot of these we can cook. A lot of the cuisines in the world, the basis for a lot of their dishes begin with onions. So we can be the exception. And we also got these cool little baby tiny onions. These are cipollini, and these are pearl onions. You see them like in a pot roast, but they're great if you cook them on a side. They can go great with any entree, any side dish. We're gonna be cooking some onions today, and you'll see how easy and delicious are. So we got our onions, and for mushrooms. So mushrooms, I know some of you already know them, like them, serve them at school or at home, but I wanna mention some of the things that I think you should be a little more adventurous, because we get button and creminis. These are the ones you find very easily, no problem. Creminis, if you let them grow, they'll become a portobello, which is the size of my hand. But maybe if you call your purveyor or your rep, whoever may sell you your food, they might be able to offer you some of these other varieties. We have some shiitakes, we have some brown clamshells, and we also have some maitake frondosa, and these are just a few. I know if you call your reps, they will be able to provide you with different kinds. They all provide us with different nutrients and minerals and stuff. So let's add a variety of them. And our barley, again, we're gonna be making a delicious soup, okay? With mushrooms and some char. It's gonna be vegetarian, but you wouldn't even know it, okay? And another thing that I wanna talk to you about is miso. Now, if you've never used miso in the past, it is a Japanese ingredient. It comes from Japan, but it is packed full of flavor. It is made out of soybeans. 1 teaspoon can really transform your soups, all right? You can use it for dressings or marinades. Today, we're gonna be using it with our soup. There's different kinds. You can get a red miso, depending on the time that it takes to ferment, it will get its color. That's where it gets its name. And there's also dashi miso. And what is dashi? It's dried fish. So they flake it and they add it. So this one, it has the addition of dried fish. It's so flavorful. A little goes a long ways. And we're gonna be using them in our recipes for later today. Are you ready to get cooking? Let's get to it.
So many buttons. Awesome. That's a great first start. Really excited to see the next part. So we're going to move back into our panelist, and we're going to be asking them where they are in their journey. So recognizing that everybody's at a different stage in this journey, we're going to look at those 3 areas of farm to school: procurement, school gardens, and food and nutrition education, and ask what is happening in your district. So I will stop sharing so you can see everybody, and we're actually going to start with Kristen. So Kristen, share with us between those 3 categories, what are you all focusing on and why are you making that decision? And you are muted. It is okay.
Thank you. I guess we have a few things going right now. So during this year, we really didn't do local food because of COVID, but going into the summer, we're hoping to. We just got some grant money from Blueprint and Hunger to purchase local food. So I'm starting to look into sources that we could buy from this summer. So that's pretty exciting. And then also focusing on nutrition education. Mountain Roots again wants to work with us this summer to provide some fun nutrition ed at the summer sites. So looking forward to that. And then also, yeah, so following procurement, just hoping to work some local food into our summer meals. So that's kind of immediately where we're at. And then getting some produce from the school garden too.
That's awesome to hear. And I do think, especially if you have a summer program and knowing how short our growing season is in Colorado, if you can incorporate products from the summer into that summer program, that's a great way to do it. And then stuff like onions, That's almost, it's a storage crop, so it is still available December, January, February is when they start maybe getting a little older and might make you cry, but they're still good. We just like to say they're tears of joy, so, because they're delicious. All right, Sherry, how about yourself? Now we're ready to hear what you all are really doing within those 3 focus areas. Where's your focus and what's happening?
Okay, well, our journey started about 3 years ago when we purchased with district money a full-size greenhouse, and our middle school and high school students grew plants from the seeds, and fruits and vegetables were harvested and used at our school salad bars. And our at our elementary school, we with the help with local ranchers, staff, and students, they built a pumpkin patch, and students were able to harvest the pumpkins in October, and they sold some of the pumpkins to have funds to grow pumpkins yearly. So that was our start. And then when Weston Schools received the Healthy Foundation grant, we were able to expand our healthy movement. And we started a committee with our superintendent, our principals, our physical education teachers, school nurse, myself, the food service director, teachers, students, parents, the local garden club, and our recreation representatives. So we have a large group that are working together to determine and plan what our community needs in the healthy areas. And one of the big areas is eating healthy affects learning and all the wellness of a student and an adult. So what we, with some of our funds from the grant, we were able to purchase, where am I leaving? Trying to lost my, so we were able to purchase salad bars that we can't use now because of COVID. So what we are doing, we decided we're going to build a community garden. And now that COVID's over with our ag students, we have been able to clear the ground that we're going to grow on. And we placed deer fencing, and the local ranchers also helped with that. So we got that finished. And now we are going to sell plots for in the community. The ag program is going to grow produce, and then there'll be separate areas for the fruits and vegetables that will serve in our schools. So that, and then we are also working with, it's called the Apple Core Project. And it's a organization that that's local, that because we have a lot of apple trees in our area, and they are showing our ag students how to take a part of a current plant or a tree and how to replant it to grow. And so we're going to be growing apples that we'll be able to use in the classrooms for science, how it's grown, and then also in our cafeterias. So, which is really exciting. And actually this month at the elementary, with their help, and we had sixth graders and kindergartners helping plant those plants or the trees, which is pretty exciting. And then the students, the sixth grade students, along with some other students, decided that let's plant a berry patch also at the same location. So we're going to have trees and we're going to have berries that they've planted and be able to produce, harvest those fruits and be able to share that with the community. So we've come a long ways in 3 years.
Yes, you have. And again, like Sherry, and for all the people on this call and who will be listening it, like this is the first time I'm hearing about all of this work that you've done over in West End. And it is absolutely incredible because I can tell that there is a very strong culture within your community to commit to farm to school, ag-based education, learning opportunities, and getting the students involved in this process and ensuring it's connected back to the Food and Nutrition Services Department. So I'm trying to plan my next trip to West End because I am just thrilled at everything that you've just shared, because that's incredible. And using basically the proceeds from like that pumpkin patch to go back into continuing to grow more pumpkins and everything. So there's so many creative ways to do this. And we're going to become besties because I'm going to be reaching out to you all the time. That's awesome. All right. And Janet, wrap us up for this section. What all are you doing?
Unmute. Sherry, that sounds amazing. You guys both have some inspiring stories. So we've got a lot of room to grow. We have a brand new garden space that we need to develop. So our farm to school or our school garden will be starting to develop this year, which is super exciting. But another fun thing that we've kind of added and we're trying to build as well is we're also pretty rural and have been trying to develop our CTE program here on campus. And so I personally have become a CTE instructor. So that is a career technology education system, which is being implemented in a lot of these rural districts right now across the state. So I'm a culinary instructor and I teach high school students culinary classes. And so incorporating that into using our school gardens and local foods and using our students, I can't remember who mentioned it earlier, but using our students for recipe development, and maybe it was you, Jessica, developing recipes to get into our into the cafeteria on the cafeteria floor. They've been helping me with caterings, and so that's super exciting. And then also, you know, just being able to go get back into the full-on system after COVID. I feel like we just were dormant for a year and haven't really been able to develop anything. So I'm just really excited to get our bid back from our local Southwest bid and see what we have locally available to us, and definitely getting more of that local produce put back in this year. So super excited about that.
That's really exciting. And I remember chatting with Janet back in 2015, 2016 about the whole culinary class and like this might happen. So it's exciting to see that it is happening and you're now a culinary instructor. Which we could talk for hours about this, but this is something where family and consumer science teachers, they need to have work-based learning opportunities for their kids. And in rural parts of the state, it's really hard to find other ways for them to actually meet those requirements. Food and Nutrition Services is a brilliant way to link it in and ultimately benefit both parties. So I think we should check in on Chef Fernando now and see how those mushrooms and onions and that soup is coming along. I'm getting hungry.
We are continuing to cook. So let me show you what we're up to. Make sure I click the share sound this time. All right, how about now? Good. Let's play.
So we're gonna begin with sauteing the onions until they're translucent, and then we're gonna add our carrots, ginger, and garlic. And the reason why we wanna do that separately is because sometimes the ginger and garlic will tend to burn easily. So we're gonna separate it by doing the onions first. I have my pot. I'm gonna add a couple tablespoons of oil. I'm gonna crank it up. So we're keeping an eye on our soup, and we're ready now to add the water and the barley. So let's go ahead and add those two ingredients real quick. So now that we added the water and the barley, we need to add the miso and the soy sauce. And one thing I want to talk about to you real quick, if you're not able to get the miso, you may be able to find the soy sauce for sure. Add it because it will really transform the flavor of your soup. This is another ingredient, fish sauce. If you're able to get it, one bottle like this will last you for a long time because you don't have to use a lot. We're gonna use our miso and soy sauce. So let's go real quick to our pot. And we'll let that simmer. For the next recipe, we're gonna be talking about caramelized onions, and that's quite simple to do. So let's get him started and then I'll tell you more about him. So all we're gonna do is some oil in the pan and the onions. So here we go. All we're gonna be doing is caramelizing. And what is caramelizing? A lot of vegetables, especially onions, they're packed full of sugar, natural sugars. And by cooking them for a long time at a low, medium heat, those sugars come out and they're gonna brown, they're gonna caramelize, and the flavor is gonna change. It's gonna be night and day, all by natural sugars that they have. We're gonna be really tapping into those flavors like umami. And what is umami? Is that meaty taste that we find in mushrooms, in meat, maybe some tomatoes and asparagus. That is that sense, that meatiness, that flavor. We're gonna get that by bringing out those sugars and caramelizing them. So we're not gonna stir them too much. We're gonna walk away and turn the heat to a low medium. And we're just gonna let them go. Now, let's talk about the other recipe. What's next? Roasted mushrooms. And for that, we're gonna be showing you how to roast them two different ways, on the stovetop and in the oven. Here are my mushrooms. I'm gonna take half of them, and here I have a variety. There's the creminis, the button, the brown clamshells, and that's it. I'm just gonna spread them. Make sure that you don't overcrowd them. Make sure you have a single layer because they're gonna be releasing a lot of moisture. They have a lot of water, and you really want them to roast. So don't overcrowd them, spread them nicely. We're gonna do some pepper, a little bit of salt, and this is just your basic roasting. Salt, pepper, and a tiny bit of olive oil or vegetable oil, whatever you have, about a tablespoon, and that's it. This is a very simple, basic recipe. I'm just gonna pop them in the oven. Laura. Now, if you want to take it to the next level, you can add herbs like rosemary, some thyme, maybe some parsley or garlic. Roast them and maybe add them towards the end so that the garlic doesn't burn, but you can add so many other flavorings. So we're gonna let them roast and put a timer and come back in about 10 to 15 minutes. They're looking really great. As you can see, I can see some browning on the edges and all over. Did you notice they're not overcrowded, which means they are able to roast evenly. Again, a very basic roasted mushrooms recipe, salt, pepper, and a little bit of oil, and that's it. So it's time now to show you how to do them in a pan on the stovetop. So let's do that. For the second recipe, with the mushrooms, we're gonna show you how to cook them on the stovetop directly. And we have a really cool trick for you, because you will notice that if you add oil in the beginning, the mushrooms are just gonna absorb it and you're gonna end up adding a lot of oil. So our trick, we're gonna be adding a 1/4 cup of water to start cooking the mushrooms. And once that water evaporates, then we can add our tablespoon of oil, because by that point, the mushrooms don't need to absorb all of that oil. They're just gonna get coated and it's gonna help with the browning, and you'll see them, they'll brown beautifully. The other thing too is for the seasonings, we're gonna add the salt at the end. Why? Because adding salt in the beginning is gonna draw the moisture out, and we're gonna be sweating, having some really wet mushrooms, and that's gonna turn our product to be really rubbery in the end. So instead of doing that, we're gonna begin with the mushrooms and the quarter cup of water. So let's go.
All right, that was fantastic. I think we made some puppies famous now. Little disclaimer, if I hadn't said it, we filmed in Jessica's house because of the way things are. So that's where you got to see and meet some of our puppies. So real quick to go over some of the culinary tips and tricks so that you can be more successful. When you purchase mushrooms, make sure that you check them just like you check everything else that comes in your kitchen. You don't want any discolor or soft spots. Even though they are fungi, they can spoil and grow mold on them if they're old. So make sure that you check them. When you store them, the packaging that they come in, that's fine. You can keep them in that. Or if you get them in a plastic bag, just make sure that you leave a little opening so that they can breathe. When it comes to prepping them, wash them. I hear from a lot of different people, some chefs, they're like, don't wet the mushrooms because they're just gonna absorb the water and you don't want that. Well, it is true. They do absorb a little tiny bit of water, but it's very minimal. You can cook it up in like 10 to 20 extra seconds. That's all it takes to get rid of that extra water. So make sure that you wash them because there's nothing more unpleasant than a spoon full of dirt. Who likes that? Nobody. I don't. So please wash them. And the salting, if you're gonna be sauteing and cooking them on the stovetop, wait until the end to add the salt because again, the salt is gonna pull the moisture and we wanna cook that water first before we season. With the onions, I might have mentioned this already. There are things, you know, that come from grandma, light a candle or chew some bread and whatever. None of that really works. They're all myths. Again, onions that are fresher will make you cry less. If you chill them in the refrigerator, they will work a little better as well. But they just have this sulfuric acid naturally. It's, you know, that's how they come. But also our sharp knife can help you as well. And I just want to go over some of the different types of onions or side dishes, condiments that you can have with your onions. As you saw, we can saute them just for a few minutes and you got sauteed delicious onions that are still white. They're a little soft, depending on the color that you use, right? If you take them a little longer and keep sauteing them for more minutes, they will brown and you'll have brown onions. If you turn the heat down to a low medium and you let them caramelize, and they will take about 45 to 60 minutes, they take a while. But if you do that slowly, those caramelized onions, the natural sugars really intensify and they taste as if you added sugar, which it's all about the natural sugars. Amazing, all right? And the last one is the pickled onions. Red pickled onions are my favorite on so many dishes, from Mexican food to some Korean food. try it. It's really some tips that will bring your vegetables to the next level. And lastly, umami. This is the fifth sense, taste sense that we know of. And it is really crucial to have it in our food to really bring a plain, simple item to the next level. Some of the things that you find them in are like miso, your ketchup, tomatoes, the caramelized onions, and especially in meat. That's the meatiness that you get, that umami. And in that lower picture with the tongue, that's where we have our taste buds and where we detect all of those different flavors. As you can see, umami, it's pretty much all over our tongue. So we want that umami because it really makes our food so tasty. So we're almost to the end. We have a little video coming up to show you the final products in a couple minutes.
Awesome. Thank you, Chef Fernando. And now we're going to go back to our panelists and talk a little bit about the barriers, because we are not one to shy away from what doesn't work while also acknowledging what has worked. So we're going to kind of work within these 4 different categories, and I'll just be popcorning out the questions, and as it relates to the different panelists, feel free to answer. As I suspected, time goes by fast, so we will have to be pretty succinct with our responses so that we can be done by 3 o'clock, if that can happen. All right, so first one that I would love to hear from you all is there a local product that you've bought, that you've brought into your kitchen that hasn't really gone over well with your staff, where they're frustrated? I know myself, I've been in that experience where I had to peel and shuck a bunch of corn for a bean salad, and I had like 1 hour, and I was like, oh crap. So curious, what items, if there are any, have you bought? And if you have that answer, you can just unmute and we'll kind of be a little rapid fire with some of these questions.
I'd say 6 or 7 years ago for Colorado Proud Day, a local organization helped, like, we bought carrots through a local organization, except they arrived the day of, unwashed, not enough. It's experience I heard about when I started my position here. It sounded pretty frustrating for the kitchen managers.
It sounds like they haven't forgotten it. Yeah.
I guess sometimes I've had the same situation up here where you have local families that bring apples and different things, and we accept them, but because we really want to be able to appreciate what they're doing, but then we just sometimes we aren't able to use them, and we use the ones that are safe, that are not damaged.
That can happen with donated products for sure, especially if you're trying to work off of the seconds that might be available. Some of them just might not be so good.
Right.
So you do have to kind of pick and choose through it. Janet, you've got a story to share?
Yeah, probably my worst nightmare was when we had lettuce brought in and it was really buggy, and the seller did rinse it, but of course, you know, my staff goes through and diligently cleans very, very carefully, but you know, there's always those little critters that like to hide in the leaves, and unfortunately some students found some bugs in their lettuce, and that didn't go over well. So took some undoing to relearn that it's okay, but these are grown in the ground, bugs help them grow. Had to do some education, but it turned out okay. And they still love lettuce and they'll eat lettuce, but we have to be super careful when we're washing, obviously.
Yes. And that's actually a great segue into like the next question, because, you know, you mentioned your students found bugs in the lettuce, and that might have been a little off-putting as they learned and became educated with that. Kristen, Sherry, were there any products that you all served that the kids were just like, please never do that again? Or has everything gone over pretty well?
I think it's gone over pretty well.
That's good. That's what we like to hear.
And I think here we've had our students involved with the growing and understanding of what it takes. So a lot of them they'll try it. And some of them, won't try it again, but they understanding how they're grown and processed, that they're accepting to at least try it.
I think that's a great reason, again, to reinforce having the kids included in this process. So quick, any challenges, barriers with building relationships with farmers, food hubs?
Well, and at West End, I'm lucky to have our ag teacher. She's really expanding what we're doing with our high school kids, and she connected with what are they called? It's the Fresh Fruit Hub that's out of Telluride, and I visited with them in February, and they are going to make we're going to do a lot of the groundwork to get connected with local growers and ranchers, and I said, as long as it comes in within our budget, that will be part of it. So we're using those connections with them.
Anyone else before we move on? And I will say, Janet, she did mention it, the garden challenges, but when I was able to visit her district back in 2015, I was floored at just how beautiful the garden was that they had. And then of course, construction happened, super exciting. We're getting a new school, a new kitchen, but the garden got completely demolished in that process. So just be aware of how that might potentially create some challenges, unexpected challenges as well with that whole process. So I think in honor of time, we're going to turn it back over to Chef Fernando real fast for the final wrap up. And then we have our lightning round questions at the very end. And that'll be our call.
And our items are done now. So now let's take a look. We have our mushrooms. We cooked them 2 different ways just to show you what you can do when we put them in the oven. Here they are. And these are the ones that we cooked on the stovetop. We sauteed them. And we finished them with just a little bit of parsley at the end, keeping it fresh. They're really great. Now from here, I can just eat them like so. Perfectly seasoned. You can put them on a pizza, sandwich. You can add them to any side, part of any entree on the side. In the mornings, I love eating my scrambled eggs with some mushrooms. They're delicious. The other recipe that we showed you, the caramelized onions, and look at that. From all that volume, it was a lot of onions. Look how much we got. They really reduced down. Taking that slow time, I mean, it takes a long time to cook, but it is well worth it. If you taste them, it is nothing like a raw onion. And we didn't add any sugar. And if you taste them, and I'm gonna do it real quick, they are so sweet. From here, I love them on pizza especially, and I know I keep saying pizza, but we make it our own. On any burger, you can add them to so many different sandwiches. Again, in the mornings, you can add them to just about anything that you add the mushrooms in. For the last one, we have our beautiful, so great mushroom barley soup. And it's all done, and look, it's so, it smells delicious. Right before I eat it, I like to garnish it with a little bit of cilantro. And the acid, the lime, it just really makes it perfect. It just brings all the flavors together. And it is now ready to be enjoyed. I hope you can make it and give it a try. You're gonna fall in love with this soup. We'll see you next time, and happy cooking.
Nice. I will say, I'll share a little personal tidbit. I have learned over the years that I like the flavor of mushrooms. However, I do not care for the texture of mushrooms. So if you puree those mushrooms and have a pureed mushroom and barley soup, I would eat that up. However, whole chunks of mushrooms, not my thing, but it's important that we take and teach the children how to actually explain what it is that they don't like about a product versus just saying, ew, I don't like it. They can say, hey, it's the texture. Maybe it's too sour. Maybe it's too salty, and give them more of that language, especially as we're introducing new recipes like a mushroom and barley soup that they might be completely unfamiliar with. So our final lightning round, this is like quick, 30 seconds or less. Where are you all taking your program next? So what's like next on your radar, especially since COVID hopefully is wrapping up and we can be back to somewhat of normal for this next school year. Fingers crossed. How about we start with Janet? What are your next plans?
I was trying to figure out if I was unmuted or not. Okay, so next plans. Again, we're trying to build up our ag program, building up our CTE program, that family consumer sciences, and just trying to really develop that and figure out where we are going with this garden, if we're going to do large production or if it is just going to truly be a small teaching garden like the past. How can we incorporate that into not only my culinary program, but also to see that develop into the cafeteria again. Looking forward to getting our bids back and seeing which farmers we will have available to us this year, and even building some new relationships, because I think there's been some new local farmers that have popped up recently that since I've been out of the loop, I haven't this COVID year. I am kind of looking forward to building some new relationships with some people that have started to pop up around the area as well.
That's awesome and super exciting. I know COVID really inspired, I think, a lot of people to get into farming as well, because it really highlighted some of the challenges that happen with our very nice global food supply chain, and how important it is to actually really have a local, robust food supply chain. So thank you for that, Janet. Sherry, how about yourself? What's next on your radar with this incredible program you all have?
Well, our next step is next year that we're going to be able to use our own produce that we've grown in our garden, and have pick apples and berries. So expand, and then also reach out to local organizations to help us and work together.
I will say, if Sherry does not fully embody Chef Fernando's statement of you can do anything, but you can't do everything, she does. Like, she is using her resources, and that is incredible. I love it. And Kristen, close us out. What is your next step?
Sure. Figuring out what local produce we can purchase this summer to incorporate into our summer food program. And then also, Chef Jessica, connected us with some folks at CSU who have been developing small, colorful potatoes. And we've been in talks with them, and we are going to, it sounds like we're going to help them by trialing their potato. They're going to give us a bunch that the managers can try out in some of our recipes and give feedback to CSU just about how well they are in different recipes, and then what the kids think of them. So that's an exciting next step.
I love that next step as well. And we will be, my goal is to actually feature that program and some other programs through our CSU Extension Specialist that can be, just as Kristen is mentioning, another resource to help bring local products in your school while also trying to test the feasibility of these markets. So with that, we aren't too terribly over time. We're doing okay, but we are a little over time. But I do want to make a quick plug for our next call on May 18th. We are going to be featuring more food service directors from around the state who will be sharing how they have marketed their farm to school program. And then the culinary demo is all about greens, because there are so many greens, more than just iceberg, and really teaching you the why behind a vinaigrette and the technique there. So looking forward to that call. There'll be more information there. Myself, Fernando, will stay on the line. If you have additional questions, I'll be sharing out the recording, the recipes that we've shared, and with permission from Kristen, Janet, and Sherry, I am happy to share their contact information should you have additional follow-up questions as well. So thank you all so much for a wonderful call. I learned so much from you all too, and really appreciate having you on the call as well.
Thanks.
Thank you. Happy Tuesday.
I know Rainey mentioned some hell, and I'm like, oh my God, it's really dark outside now.
Yeah. That was great, Kristen. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you guys. I learned a lot. Appreciate it.
You too.
I want to go home and make that soup.
That's awesome.
I
We'll get
gotta
those
be
recipes.
honest, I had plenty of barley in the past, but never in a soup.
Oh, okay.
Always in the liquid form, but it's it's great if you eat it too.
Believe it or not, one of my earliest like not good food memories is when I was a kid. My mom gave me some homemade barley soup. Like I was really little, like 4 or something. And then I barfed, but I so I've had a bad association, but I may have just been sick anyway. I'm totally ready to revisit it now.
I'll be honest, barley wasn't one of my grains, but I had some left over. I added it to my oats in the morning for breakfast. It's, I don't know, once, you know, you got that chef in you that now I want to keep playing with it and see what I can do with it.
Yeah, cool.
It's good, it's good.
Yeah, well, thank you.
Thank you as well.
Thanks for joining.
Take care.
All right. Have a good day.
You.
All right. I think I'm gonna pop off and call it good. It was another good call. On to my next meeting. All right. I'll see you later.
Bye.